This podcast is part of the Pull Up a Chair podcast network. Let's build community through connection, conversation, and collaboration. This podcast is sponsored by Lever Consulting, editing with a purpose. Check them out at leverconsulting.com for a free consultation.
Hey, I'm Ryan.
And I'm V.
And you're listening to Cringe With Me, the podcast where we dig up the cringiest articles, questions, and tidbits of human culture to review with you, our listeners, so you too can cringe with me.
I'm hypocritical, but at least I know we could be beautiful or maybe terrible.
Okay, so this episode might end up being a little bit long.
Oh.
But I have to say, it is the cringiest thing I've ever read on the internet.
Okay, I'm very excited.
All right, so this...
Wait, it's the cringiest?
It's... Oh my god, it's so uncomfortable.
So wait, what episode are we on? Yeah, but I'm like episode number. Like how many episodes did it take for us to find the cringiest thing you've ever found?
God, I don't even know. It's like... Our first episode came out on January 5th of this year. So it took us like 6 months in.
Okay. All right. Okay. So 6 months and we peaked.
This is the peak.
All
right. So this was reposted onto r/best of Reddit updates, but it was originally posted on r/relationship advice.
Okay. Love where we're starting.
Yes. I know it sounds like something out of those really bad Netflix movies, but unfortunately all of this is true.
Okay.
I was over at a friend's house for most of the day yesterday, and I wasn't supposed to be coming home until later in the evening. This was super common for me right now. That family has a pool and stuff, so I've been over at her house a lot since school ended a few weeks ago. Mid-afternoon, we decided to go and just drive around and decided to go to the mall to go shopping. I didn't bring any money with me because I keep all of my cash in a little jar in my room so I don't spend impulsively. So we decided to drop by my house on the way to the mall so I could pick up my cash.
When was this? Like, when is the original? Because I'm like...
The original was posted just before the pandemic started.
Okay.
The summer before the pandemic.
I'm like, how old is this person that they only have cash? I'm like, that's very interesting.
Well,
anyway, continue.
It's so they don't spend their money impulsively.
Yeah. Smart.
All right. So... When we got there, my friend decided to wait in the car because I was only going to be in for a couple of minutes. When I walked into the house, my parents were on the couch. I don't want to be too overly graphic about what was going on, but my mom was on my dad's lap teasing him, and it was very clear that they were on their way to having sex. They both froze when they saw me. Totally unexpected because they didn't plan on being interrupted at all. I was frozen too, and then after a couple seconds, I realized my mom was literally wearing one of my favorite dresses, in all caps, like I wear all the time. It's not even like it was a really revealing or sexy dress. It's just a normal sundress that I've owned since middle school.
Okay.
We were looking at each other in shock for what it must have been just a few seconds before my mom said, "I'm so sorry, sweetie." I ran back out of the house and was crying by the time I made it to my friend's car. I started explaining to her what I had just seen, and she was calming me down. But then my mother came out of the house after me, literally still wearing my dress. I told my friend to drive away before she got to the car, and we went back to her house. I didn't give her parents any detail about what happened, just thought that I had some family drama. I've been with her friend since then, so they've told me that I can sleep at their house for a couple days just until I get everything figured out. I barely slept last night. Every time I close my eyes, I see it in my head. My mom called me a bunch of times, but I only texted her back to let her know where I am and told her I needed time before I'm ready to talk to them. She then replied again and apologized and wants me to come home today to talk to them. I don't know if I can do that just yet. Even typing this out, I started shaking with nerves. What do I do now? I've never felt unsafe in my house before at all, but I don't know if I'm comfortable being around my parents right now, knowing that she is literally pretending to be me. I'm so grossed out, and I think I want to burn every piece of clothing I've ever owned. TLDR, I came home unexpectedly and walked in on my mom and dad having sex while my mom was wearing one of my favorite dresses. There's a bunch of edits, but before we jump in, what is your initial thought here?
Wow, a lot to unpack there. I think the thing that strikes me first, actually, is that there's a logical jump that's been made that I'm not sure is fair to make.
Mm-hmm.
Just because the mom was wearing some of your clothing doesn't mean that she was pretending to be you, right? Like, that's a whole psychological, can of worms to throw on this situation.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying that's not what happened, but that's a very interesting jump to make without any other information.
Okay. Edit number 1. I really didn't want to write anything erotic about what my parents did, but since some people are suggesting that I might have made a leap in logic,
Okay.
I thought I would clear the air.
Okay.
They weren't in the act of having sex, aka his penis had not penetrated her vagina.
Mm-hmm.
The top portion of the dress was pulled down, and they were doing stuff with their fingers in their mouths. If that isn't sexual, I don't know what is. In addition, she was crying it out, "Put it in me, stepdaddy."
Oh, no. Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, she didn't make a logical leap. She just didn't give us the information. Got it.
I mean, would you want to write that out?
I would write that there was definitive evidence that there was, because without that, I'm like, okay, that's an interesting jump to make. You don't even have to tell me that explicit line. You can just say there was definitive evidence that they were role playing that she was me. That's the part that was left out of the original. That's terrifying. Oh my God.
All right, edit number 2.
Okay. Oh, we're still in it. We're still in it.
It goes for a while.
Okay.
Edit number 2. I'm not upset that my parents were having sex. It's a fact that they were about to have sex while my mom was wearing one of my favorite dresses. Her and I have never shared clothes, and I've never tried to rationalize. I've tried to rationalize it every other way, but I just don't see how her going into my room, taking my dresses, and saying what she said is me interpreting this as anything other than them role playing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you interpret it as anything else either.
You look upset.
I mean, this is a disturbing thing. This is upsetting in several different ways.
So this is definitely us peaking right now, right?
Yeah, possibly. This is definitely one of the most cringe things that we've talked about.
All right, are you ready for the update?
Oh no, there's an update?
There's an update. Not just an edit, an update.
All right.
All right. I promised to give an update on my situation, and I honestly don't feel like writing this. While things have been pretty helpful to share, it's a little tough to talk about. Anyways, here it goes. Several people on my initial post advised that I should speak with a therapist before seeking or speaking with either of my parents. I called one and had seen a few times in the past. She was able to book me in for an emergency session, and she really helped me work through what I saw, as well as my worries, and constructing a list of questions to ask my mom when I finally had spoken with her. I met with my mom over the last weekend. We met at the park near our house in the afternoon. We stayed away from everyone else at the park. My friend who I'm staying with and her boyfriend went with me for moral support, but they hung back and let me speak to my mother alone. I'm not going to go through the entire conversation because we walked and talked for over an hour, and it was pretty much what I had feared. But she was in fact role-playing as me when I walked in on her and Dad. She wouldn't confirm how long they'd been doing it, but gave me a list of several pieces of my clothing that she would wear. Some of my dresses, especially from when I was in middle school. A couple of sets of my night pajamas which she had previously borrowed. To clear the air on some people asking, he is in fact my biological father.
Oh.
She claimed that they were all cleaned thoroughly before being returned to my dresser undisturbed. And I have no reason to believe that she wouldn't have cleaned them after having sex in them. But I am never going to wear any of those things ever again regardless. It was probably stupid of me, but I asked which one of them came up the idea to role play with her role playing as me and him role playing as a stepdad. According to her, it was her own idea. I still don't feel comfortable seeing or talking with her or my dad. My dad hasn't reached out to me since I walked in on them either, so I guess he isn't comfortable talking to me. My dad was at work when I spoke to her, and I made sure of that because I wanted to be able to go to the house to get a few more things. She let me go in there alone with my friend and get the things that I needed before going back to my friend's place. I'm still working on where to go from here. I ended up having to fully explain the situation to my friend's parents. They are both extremely understanding and are willing to help me and let me rent a spare bedroom from them for a few months while I figure something else out. I'm working on getting more hours at my job. So yeah, that's pretty much all that happened. I doubt I'll update again beyond this. But I sincerely want to thank everybody for reaching out and trying to help. TLDR, I met up with my mom to discuss things, and she confirmed that she was role-playing as me when I walked in on her and my dad. I'm continuing to stay with my friend and her family until I figure out where to go from here.
Wow. Okay, yeah.
I'm not
a little
to look-
stunned silence over here. Sorry.
Try not to look too hurt.
I'm not hurt. I'm just... Wow. Wow.
Right?
Okay. So
Right?
when this started off, I had every intention of giving the benefit of the doubt, and then all of that was shattered. So I'm left in this position of, okay, this happened. How do you deal with that? I'm not sure I'd be able to handle this any better than she did. That's...
How does one handle this?
So the thing is, when she even said the like stepdad thing, a part of my brain was, well, maybe she's not role playing as her, right? Maybe they're doing a role play thing where it's a stepfather and stepdaughter, but it's nameless stepdaughter, right? It's not her.
Yeah.
It's a girl her age kind of thing.
Which is still disgusting.
Still disgusting, but at least then it wouldn't be about
Incest.
her, right? Yeah. It's not incestuous. It's an unfortunately common fantasy, right? It's a fantasy that exists in the world, okay? And so you can say, all right, well, maybe they're role-playing out this fantasy that I have problems with, but it's not about me. But she was role-playing specifically as her, according to the post, and that's the part that really messes with me, right? That's the part that I'm having trouble with.
Why would the mom want to role play as her daughter? Like, what sicko is she?
There's a lot to unpack there, and I don't think I'm qualified to unpack it.
I don't think either
honestly.
of us is qualified.
That's yeah, this is terrifying because wow. I mean, I don't even know. Like, yeah, how are you're role playing that you're having sex with your daughter as if she was not real. I mean, I guess you're trying to avoid the incest part by making it stepdaughter, right? Is that the goal there? Is to make it so it's like, oh, me wanting to have sex with my daughter is wrong because she's my daughter and we're biologically related. But if we're not biologically related, then suddenly it's okay and I can play with that space. Is that where he's at? Like, I'm trying to understand the mentality that goes into setting up the situation, and I'm having trouble wrapping my head around it a little bit.
But like, oh god, they had sex in her night dress.
Oh yeah, no, there's a whole lot of... It's not good.
I would get rid of every single article of clothing award just in case.
Well, at least the mom was kind enough to provide a list of the articles of clothing. I would at least get rid of those.
Oh my god, the dresses from when she was in middle school.
Again, there's a lot that's messed up about this, and like, you know, I'm not here to kink shame anybody, right? If you've got like a fetish or a thing that you're playing out in a safe way that is not harmful or actually acting out on things that are illegal and immoral, you know, okay, you know, you want to play in a headspace, that's one thing, but this, I think, is pushing the limit of where I can be like okay with, and I'm like, I don't know that there's a way to justify this one.
There is no justifying this.
I mean, I don't know. Yeah, people. Well, I mean, okay. So here's the thing, right? Let's try to make a comparison.
Okay.
Right. We're gonna. This is gonna be a very sexual episode. So I feel like we should have had a warning at the beginning that this is where this is going. But here's the warning now. We're gonna talk about sexual practices and kinks a little bit. I think.
Okay.
I think we're gonna have to get into this. No, I'm not. This is not me trying to educate you. This is me, kind of exploring the space. Right. Do we think we think it's we're starting from a premise? It seems.
Yeah.
Is what I'm understanding from you is that it is immoral and wrong for someone to even play in the space.
Oh, I just think it's personally gross. I'm not going to throw morality into it.
Okay. So you think it's gross to play in the space of doing this thing because this thing is...
I also think foot stuff is gross, but that's none of my business.
Okay. Sorry. I thought you were attacking this from moral grounds.
Well,
and
okay,
not from
there is a
gross.
moral ground because he is her biological father, but I don't think role-playing a kink is wrong.
Okay. Because that was where I was about to go. So I'm like, I don't think it's because people play with abuse.
Yeah,
as a kink, right?
Again, that's another thing I think is on the level of doing shit with your feet. I think it's icky, and that just means I don't do it.
Right. Okay. Yeah, and you thinking something is gross or icky, that I'm okay. That I think there's no conversation we need to have there. I thought that you were coming at it from a moral ground, and I'm like,
I don't have the authority to put morality in your sexuality.
I mean, that doesn't stop people, but yeah, okay.
It should.
Yeah, I mean, it should, but it doesn't. People are going to judge what they're going to judge. And I wasn't sure if we were passing judgment on this or saying it was gross.
Well,
I do agree that it is cringy and gross.
Yeah.
I don't know that I can pass judgment on it because the things that people tend... Like, I already mentally accept people playing in spaces that I think are morally reprehensible to do in real life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like abuse, right?
Yeah.
Like, real abuse is morally reprehensible.
Absolutely.
Playing with it is not.
Yeah, you do you.
Right. So
I want to hear about it, but you do you.
Well, I'm not even talking about me. I'm just saying in general. Like, this is not. It's not morally reprehensible to play in a abuse, like to mentally play in a space of abuse that is not actually abuse. Right. That's what kink and that stuff is all about. Right. It's being able to explore these spaces without it being that thing, so nobody actually is getting hurt, or at least not. For some people, they find that actually even helpful. Right. So that if we're allowing that people to do something we think is morally reprehensible in a way that is not morally reprehensible, where does incest fall into that?
Okay.
Because I'm like, ooh, like this hits a different note.
Okay, with playing in those spaces, there's no victims. There is a victim here.
Okay, question. Is she the victim because of the clothes borrowing, or is she a victim because of the nature of the roleplay itself?
Because of the objectification that her parents have been putting on her since she was a minor. She might not have known that she was being objectified, but she was being objectified. If it was just the mom was role-playing imaginary nameless stepdaughter, then there wouldn't be a victim. Because it would be, ew, you're borrowing my clothes for sex, that's gross. Which is just in the icky space.
Okay, I want to extrapolate on that one. That's a very interesting one. So, if we say that she's the victim because they are role-playing specifically as her,
yeah,
does that mean that when anyone role-plays anyone, the person they're role-playing is the victim?
Like if the person is a minor, yes.
Okay, so it's specifically the role-playing as a specific minor that makes the minor the victim?
And I think there's also the element of she is their biological daughter who is depending on them. Even if she was the adopted daughter, let me take that back. She is their child.
Sure.
She was raised in that house to trust those two people. And they've been using her as a sex joke. As a way to get off.
Okay. I was like, I don't know if
she might have not known.
There, but I get what you...
Yeah, she might not have known that her existence has been used as an aspect of their sexuality, but they are using her sexually, even if they aren't touching her sexually.
Interesting.
Again, if it was imaginary stepdaughter, it would just be in the icky realm. But my personal belief is that they have been objectifying her, and it makes me question if there's been any grooming that the daughter is just not aware of.
That's interesting. I don't know
She's
that I would
young.
make that assumption.
See, she's so young. How is she supposed to know these things?
Oh yeah, no. I'm not saying that couldn't happen, right? I'm saying my mind does not go there from what is occurring.
Well, I mean, usually stuff starts out small. Usually a predator doesn't start by abusing you.
Here, okay, I totally agree with you, and I understand that concept, right? Like that what you're saying could be happening makes sense to me. What I'm saying is that the only explanation? Is there a world where they can play with this fantasy without it affecting their life outside of that fantasy? Because in my mind, a lot of people are very separate in their fantasies from their life, right? Their fantasy is this thing they play with in this space, but they don't touch it outside of that. This is actually especially common, I think, in the kink community, where people who play out like physical abuse, a lot of those people would never consider physically abusing someone outside of that, right? Like it's not something that ever factors into their mind. Like some people are so even like so mentally averse to it that they struggle to play in that space because they're so averse to it, but they can. And so to me, playing in that space doesn't mean that they actually want or feel these things. They can be very separate.
But they're going through her clothing. And they're going towards the clothing that is more related to her being young and innocent. They're doing it in the front room. And when she like found out about it, they weren't upfront with her.
They weren't?
No.
They didn't try to hide anything. They tried to talk to her. She left.
They demanded her come back immediately on their terms. It's a power play. And it is...
I don't think that they demanded she come back. They tried to talk to her.
No.
The mom tried to talk to her.
Yeah, she tried to talk to her, called her several times, and didn't give her daughter a second to just understand what happened. Just seeing your parents have sex apparently is very traumatizing. I can't relate. My parents weren't ever together in my memory.
I was like, I don't think that's traumatizing for everyone. That's.
I mean, I can't personally relate.
I was like, my personal experience with that is that it's whatever. It's just two people having sex. You walk in on that, you're like, okay, and you move on.
There's thousands of stories. Some people find it very.
I know some people find it very uncomfortable, but I don't think we can make a claim about.
How long have they been doing this though?
Sure.
That they didn't answer. She wasn't.
Well, we didn't. I don't know if that was asked.
It was asked. She let me pull it back up.
Okay.
Actually,
I'm very curious. I was like, was that even part of it? I don't know.
It was in the update. She wouldn't confirm with me how long it had been going on. Okay. But she did give me a list. Blah 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 blah.
Interesting. Wouldn't confirm all that. That I find that's very interesting.
You know, I can't imagine, because it's not just any role playing. It's a very specific role playing about their child.
Again, I'm not disagreeing with you, and I'm not trying to defend these people or their actions. I'm trying to figure out what framework we're creating around this, right? Like, I'm like, okay, if we're deciding this is bad, we need to define why it is bad.
It is bad because he is their child. She's still dependent on them. And they're not just using the idea of her to be aroused, but they're using her belongings to be aroused.
Yeah, I definitely think that the using her stuff is a part of what makes this more of a problem. Yeah. Right?
Yeah, those 3 reasons are why I find this particular kink wrong. All the other ones, I just personally find icky. Which is not a moral thing.
Because coming back to your question, like, I can't believe it's the mom who thought of this.
See, I don't believe them. I don't.
Oh, yeah, I mean, she could have been lying to defend her father. She might have thought it would look worse if the dad suggested it, so she said it was her idea.
And the dad hasn't spoken to her at all.
But I don't want to operate under the assumption that they're lying. I want to operate under the assumption that if that's true, what does that mean? Right? If the mom is the one who came up with this, what does that mean?
It means her mom is probably just as into little girl vagina.
What?
Mom's also a pedo then.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Isn't this just like... I remember I read it. I had to stop and think. Then I read it to my husband, and he told me to stop about halfway through, and I kept reading it, and he just looked at me like, you freaking monster.
Wow. Yeah, no, it's definitely disturbing on a level that I didn't think was going to get me. Like, I mean, I feel like I know people who have done fucked up things. I've seen fucked up things, and like I've heard about these kinds of things, and I didn't think this one would get me. It's getting me more than I thought it would.
The more you sit and think about it, the worse it gets. Because again, it's like we talked about earlier. It's not just an imaginary, nameless role playing thing. it's a very targeted one.
Right. And that's the thing that gets me is I'm like, if this was unnamed stepdaughter.
Yeah, unnamed
right?
stepdaughter.
I don't think it would set up any red flags in my head. I think I'd be like, okay, yeah, this is a kink they're playing out in a safe way that is consensual and no one's getting hurt. And my brain is like, okay, that's fine. Like maybe it speaks to some other issues, maybe not. Doesn't matter. It's their life. They're doing their thing.
Keep it
and
in your
not hurting anyone.
bedroom. We'll pretend it doesn't exist.
But you're right. The fact that it's specifically their daughter that they're role playing as if they're altering her identity slightly to be a stepdaughter and then playing with that.
With her belongings.
With her belongings.
In her home.
Yeah, there's definitely a part of me that's like, there's a part of my brain that has decided this is wrong, and my brain is working very hard to try to define why it's wrong, but digging into that space and trying to understand why they're doing this and what makes it wrong is making it worse in my head. And so I'm like trying to process this, and it's I'm struggling with this one. And maybe this is a part of me is like, is this a failure of my own open-mindedness that is like, I'm just not able to wrap my head around this? Or is this like, no, this really is just kind of
there's not a lot that's super honestly morally reprehensible, but this is there.
Yeah.
Like I said, feed stuff I find icky. Role playing certain things when nobody gets hurt I find kind of icky. Mm-hmm. But that's not a moral judgment. That's just me not liking it.
Yeah. That's preference versus morality. Those are very different. Yeah, it's like there's definitely...
That's a good way. I'll have to remember it. My preference, instead of just me saying icky.
Yeah. Well, like calling it icky can be offensive, right? Like saying something... Because when you call something icky, you are passing judgment, right? You're saying, this is gross, right? And so like, it's better to frame it another way, I think, when you're talking about those kinds of things, right?
Saying,
be like,
I find this
this isn't for me. I don't, this doesn't work for me. I don't like it.
Preference.
Right? Saying I don't like something or it doesning work for me is not judgment. You're talking about your own preference.
Thank you for helping my language improve.
But in this case, I don't think this is an issue of, I don't like this. I think there's a part of me that's like, yeah, I'm having a visceral response of this is gross.
There's also a very clear victim here. This girl's going to be traumatized.
Yeah, it's probably going to screw up her relationship with her parents indefinitely. And that's terrible. And
how do you trust anybody after that?
Well, I mean, I don't know. But as speaking as someone who has trust issues, my trust issues do not extend to all people because of things that certain people have done, right? Like my trust issues are specific to certain things. Mm-hmm. So I might not trust authority figures, or I might not trust parental figures after this. I don't know that I wouldn't trust everyone. Yeah, but I feel like that's how it would affect me, but everyone processes differently.
Because I think this is an authority figure that blends into other relationships. It's not just that her parents let her down. It's her parents let her down sexually.
Sure. Well, and I think the thing that's going to potentially hit for this person, if they end up in a relationship down the road where they get married and have their own children, are they going to constantly be wondering if their partner is fantasizing about their children, right? Like, I think it's going to go deep and it's not really going to get out of there. And this person's likely going to need quite a bit of therapy to work through the trauma that comes out of this. It's rather unfortunate.
Yeah, thankfully, it sounds like she's already jumped into therapy and hopefully she never leaves it.
Yeah, that's a rough one.
That is a rough one.
I think you may have hit the cringiest thing that we've ever talked about. This is pretty bad.
Yeah, this is really bad. But guys, we'll see if Ryan can top it next week.
Oh, no way. There's no way. That's absolutely none.
We'll see. All right, bye. We'll see you next time.
All right, well, I'm Ryan, and you can find me on Twitter and Instagram under Build Right Roll, where I post about my professional Dungeon Master experiences. You can check out the links in the description if you're interested in hiring a professional DM or looking to level up your own DM skills.
And you can find me, V, at Cringe Queen at Instagram and Twitter, or check me out on YouTube as the Queen of Cringe, and be embarrassed with me.
All right, well, thanks for listening and cringing along with us.
And we'll catch you next time with more awesome cringe content.
I'm hypocritical, but at least I know we could be beautiful or maybe terrible. Only one way to know.
Sarah and Scooter Podcast is a conversation between,
you guessed it,
Sarah
and Scooter. We are not experts on any of these topics.
Just hoping to spark something like an idea, conversation, or even a revelation.
Subjects will vary depending on our friends, family, and community.
Sometimes it will be what we want to talk about.
New episodes drop every week on all of your favorite podcast formats.
So pull up a chair and
And let's talk about stuff.